The rain had started just after 7, light at first, then heavier, drumming against the tall windows of the Ashford room with a rhythm that made the evening feel sealed off from the rest of the city. Boston's financial district glowed faintly in the distance, office towers bleeding light into the October fog, but inside the restaurant, everything felt muted, controlled, expensive. Mariah Collins moved between tables like a shadow. That's how she'd learned to survive in places like this. Quiet, efficient, invisible. She'd been working at the Ashford room for 11 months now. Always the closing shift. Always in the back sections where the kitchen noise was louder than the conversations. Her uniform was simple. Black slacks, white shirt, dark apron tied neatly at her waist. No name tag. The management said it looked cleaner that way. She didn't mind. Anonymity was safer. The dinner rush had ended an hour ago. Most of the tables were empty now, just a few stragglers finishing wine, talking in low voices about mergers and market trends. Mariah wiped down a corner booth, stacking plates with practiced precision. Her hands moved automatically. Pick up the fork, fold the napkin, check for stains on the tablecloth. Repeat. She'd done this 1,000 times. From across the room she noticed him. Table 12, the one near the window overlooking the harbor. He'd been sitting there for almost 40 minutes alone. Mid-20s, maybe 30 at most. Expensive suit, the kind with no visible label but you could tell cost more than her monthly rent. Dark hair swept back, clean-shaven, the kind of face you'd see on a business magazine cover. He hadn't looked up from his phone once since his meal arrived. Mariah had brought him water twice. He didn't say thank you either time, not unusual. In her experience, the wealthier they were, the less they saw her. She'd become used to it. The way their eyes would pass over her like she was part of the furniture. The way they'd talk on their phones while she cleared their plates. The way they'd leave without a word. Still, something about this one felt different. Not rude, exactly. Just absent. Like his mind was somewhere else entirely. He ate slowly. Seared salmon, roasted vegetables, no wine. He cut each piece with deliberate care, chewing thoughtfully, eyes fixed on his screen. Mariah caught glimpses of spreadsheets, numbers in neat columns. Work, clearly. Even here, even now, he was working. She turned away and focused on the other tables. A couple near the bar settled their bill with a polite nod. An older gentleman left a 20 on the table and touched the brim of his hat as he passed. Small gestures. Mariah had learned to appreciate them. By 9:30, the restaurant was nearly empty. Patrick Donovan, the night manager, appeared from the kitchen, his tie slightly loosened, a clipboard in hand. He scanned the room with the sharp efficiency of someone who'd spent 20 years in hospitality. "Mariah, once table 12's done, you can start closing your section," he said without looking at her. "Yes, sir." He walked off toward the bar, already focused on the next task. Mariah glanced back at table 12. The young man was still there, but his plate was empty now. He'd pushed it aside, phone flat on the table, fingers steepled beneath his chin. For the first time all evening, he looked up, not at her but out the window at the rain streaking down the glass. If you're enjoying this story so far, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us bring more incredible stories like this one. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned. You won't believe what happens next. Mariah gave him another 5 minutes, then approached carefully. "Can I get you anything else, sir?" Her voice was soft, professional, practiced. He didn't turn. "No, just the check." She pulled the leather billfold from her apron and placed it gently beside his phone. He didn't look at it, didn't look at her. "Thank you," she said quietly, stepping back. He nodded once, barely perceptible, and reached for his wallet. Mariah returned to the sideboard, began sorting silverware into trays. She could hear the faint rustle of bills, the snap of the billfold closing. A moment later, she saw him stand, adjust his cufflinks, and walk toward the exit without a backward glance. The door closed softly behind him. She waited 30 seconds, long enough to be sure he wasn't coming back, then crossed to table 12. The billfold sat exactly where she'd left it. She opened it. Inside was a black credit card receipt and 4 crisp $100 bills. The meal had cost $63. He'd left exact payment in cash, no change requested, and no tip. Mariah stared at the bills for a moment, then let out a slow breath. She'd expected it, really. People like him rarely left cash tips, and when they did, it was usually calculated to the dollar. Efficient. Transactional. She began clearing the table, water glass, napkin, unused silverware. Her movements were automatic, muscle memory taking over. Stack the plates, check for leftovers. wiped down the surface. The receipt was still lying there. She picked it up, ready to file it away with the others. But as her fingers touched the paper, something made her pause. There was weight to it, texture, like something had been written on the back. She hesitated. It wasn't her business. Receipts sometimes had notes, special requests, feedback for the kitchen, reservation details, usually printed. This felt different. Her thumb brushed the edge of the paper. Slowly, almost reluctantly, she turned it over. The back of the receipt was covered in handwriting. Small, precise, blue ink. Not printed, not a mistake. Intentional. Mariah's breath caught. The words were few, but they stopped her cold. "If you're reading this, you're the one I've been looking for." Her pulse quickened. She read it again, slower this time, making sure she hadn't misunderstood. Beneath that, another line. "Don't tell anyone. Meet me at the corner of State and Congress tomorrow, 7 p.m. Come alone." Her hands started to shake. This wasn't a thank you note. This wasn't feedback. This was a message. For her. Mariah's mind raced. Why would he leave this? Why write it hidden on the back of a receipt? Why not just speak to her directly, unless he couldn't, unless someone was watching? She glanced around the restaurant. Patrick was at the bar counting the register. The kitchen staff clattered dishes in the back. No one was paying attention to her. She folded the receipt carefully and slipped it into her apron pocket. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Who was this man? What did he want? And why her? A woman he'd barely acknowledged all evening. Before she could process any of it, Patrick's voice cut through her thoughts. "Mariah." She jumped slightly, turning to see him walking toward her. Phone pressed to his ear. He lowered it. "The guy from table 12 just called. He's asking if you found something on his table." Mariah's stomach dropped. "Something?" she asked, her voice barely steady. Patrick frowned. "Yeah. Said he might have left something important. Did you see anything unusual?" Her hand instinctively moved to her apron pocket, feeling the folded paper inside. She met Patrick's eyes, and in that split second, Mariah Collins made a choice that would change everything. Mariah's fingers pressed against the folded receipt in her apron pocket. Patrick was still watching her, waiting for an answer, his expression caught between mild annoyance and professional concern. The phone was still in his hand, the line presumably still open. She had maybe 3 seconds to decide. Tell the truth, hand over the receipt, and whatever this was would be over before it started. Simple, safe, exactly what she'd always done. Keep her head down, follow the rules, don't make waves, or lie. "No, sir," Mariah heard herself say. "Just the dishes and the payment, nothing unusual." The words came out steady, calmer than she felt. Patrick's frown deepened slightly, but he nodded and raised the phone back to his ear. "Yeah, she says there was nothing left behind. Just the check and payment." "Uh-huh. Okay. I'll have her double check." He lowered the phone again. "Go back and look one more time. Under the table, on the floor. Anywhere he might have dropped something." "Of course." Mariah turned and walked back to table 12, her legs somehow still working despite the adrenaline flooding her system. She crouched beside the booth, made a show of checking under the seat cushions, running her hand along the floor. Her heart was pounding so hard she was certain Patrick could hear it from across the room. The receipt felt like it was burning through the fabric of her apron. Why had she lied? She didn't know this man, didn't know what he wanted. For all she knew, this could be dangerous. Some kind of trap, a sick game, something she'd regret getting involved in. But that message, "If you're reading this, you're the one I've been looking for." Someone had been looking for her. Specifically her. In her entire life, Mariah couldn't remember the last time anyone had been looking for her for a good reason. She stood up, brushing off her knees. "Nothing, Mr. Donovan. The table's clean." Patrick relayed the information, exchanged a few more words, then ended the call. He looked at her with a hint of suspicion that made her stomach clench. He seemed pretty insistent. Patrick said slowly, "You're sure?" "Positive. I cleared everything myself." A pause. Then Patrick shrugged. "All right. Probably just paranoid. Rich people lose things, they panic." He glanced at his watch. "Finish closing up. I want to be out of here by 10:30. "Yes, sir." He walked away, and Mariah released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. She'd just lied to her manager. For a complete stranger. For a man who'd left her $0 in tip and a cryptic message on the back of a receipt. What the hell was she doing? The rest of the closing routine passed in a blur. Mariah wiped tables, restocked silverware, helped the kitchen staff bag trash. Every movement was mechanical, her mind stuck on those handwritten words. State and Congress. 7 p.m. tomorrow. Come alone. By 10:40, she was walking through the employee exit into the alley behind the restaurant. The rain had stopped, but the air was thick with moisture, the pavement slick and reflecting the yellow glow of the streetlights. Boston's October cold bit through her thin jacket. She pulled out her phone. 3 text messages from her roommate, Shanice, asking when she'd be home. 1 missed call from her mother in Atlanta. Nothing unusual. Mariah started walking toward the T station, her sneakers splashing through shallow puddles. The financial district was quiet at this hour, just the occasional car passing, the distant wail of a siren, the hum of late-night delivery trucks. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out the receipt. Under the harsh glare of a streetlight, she read it again. If you're reading this, you're the one I've been looking for. Don't tell anyone. Meet me at the corner of State and Congress tomorrow, 7 p.m. Come alone. Below that, smaller, almost as an afterthought, I know what happened to your brother. Mariah stopped walking. The street spun around her. Car horns, distant voices, the rumble of the subway beneath her feet. All of it faded into white noise. She read the line again, and again. I know what happened to your brother. Her hands started shaking so badly she nearly dropped the receipt. Marcus. No one had mentioned Marcus in 3 years. Not since the funeral. Not since the investigation went cold. Not since the police stopped returning her mother's calls and the case file got buried under 100 others. Marcus Collins, 24 years old, shot outside a convenience store in Dorchester on a Tuesday night. Wrong place, wrong time, according to the official report. Caught in crossfire between 2 gangs. No witnesses, no arrests, no justice. Her baby brother, who'd been working 2 jobs to save for community college, who'd called her every Sunday without fail, who'd sent her a birthday card 2 weeks before he died with a $20 bill inside and a note that said, "Don't spend it all in one place, sis." Gone. And now, 3 years later, a stranger in a $1,000 suit was claiming he knew what happened. Mariah's vision blurred. She blinked hard, forcing back tears that came too easily when she thought about Marcus. Not here, not on a public street. She'd learned to compartmentalize her grief, to lock it away in a place she only visited late at night when Shanice was asleep and no one could see her break. But this was different. If this man really knew something, if there was even a chance he could give her answers, she had to find out. Even if it was dangerous, even if it was stupid, she needed to know. Mariah folded the receipt carefully and tucked it back into her pocket. Then she pulled out her phone and typed a quick message to Shanice. Working late tomorrow. Don't wait up. She didn't trust herself to say more. The subway ride home took 30 minutes. Mariah sat in the corner of the orange line car, staring at her reflection in the dark window. A tired woman in her late 20s looked back. Brown skin, dark eyes shadowed with exhaustion, hair pulled back in a practical bun. She looked exactly like what she was, someone trying to survive, one shift at a time. But tomorrow maybe she'd be something else, someone looking for the truth. The apartment she shared with Shanice was in Roxbury, 4th floor of a building that had seen better decades. The heat was inconsistent, the elevator broken more often than not, but the rent was manageable and the neighbors mostly kept to themselves. Shanice was on the couch when Mariah walked in, Netflix playing on the laptop balanced on her knees. She looked up, eyebrows raised. "Girl, you look like you've seen a ghost." Mariah forced a smile. "Long night. Patrick being an ass again? When isn't he?" Mariah dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her sneakers. "I'm exhausted. Going to bed." Shanice studied her for a moment longer, concern flickering across her face, but she didn't push. That was one of the things Mariah appreciated most about her roommate. She knew when to leave things alone. "All right, there's leftover Chinese in the fridge if you're hungry." "Thanks." Mariah made it to her room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of her bed. The receipt was still in her pocket. She pulled it out one more time, reading those final words by the light of her phone. "I know what happened to your brother. Who was this man? How did he know about Marcus? And why reach out this way? Hidden, cryptic, almost paranoid in its secrecy. Unless he was afraid. Unless whatever he knew was dangerous enough that he couldn't risk being direct." Mariah's mind raced through possibilities. A witness who'd finally come forward? Someone involved who wanted to clear their conscience? A journalist investigating old cases? Or something worse? She thought about the way he'd sat at that table, alone, focused, never making eye contact, like he was watching for something, or hiding from someone. She thought about the phone call to the restaurant, asking if she'd found anything, testing her maybe, seeing if she'd take the bait. She had. Tomorrow at 7, she'd find out why. Mariah lay back on her bed, still fully clothed, staring at the water-stained ceiling. Sleep felt impossible, but somehow, exhaustion pulled her under. She dreamed of Marcus, of the last time she'd seen him alive, standing in their mother's kitchen in Atlanta, laughing about something stupid, light catching in his eyes. In the dream, he turned to her and said, "You should probably turn that receipt over, sis." And she woke up. The next day passed with agonizing slowness. Mariah had the morning shift at a coffee shop in Back Bay, her second job, the one that paid even less than the Ashford room but came with health insurance. She poured lattes, wiped down counters, smiled at customers who never learned her name. Every time she checked her phone, it was still only noon, then 2, then 4. By 6, she was standing in front of her bathroom mirror, trying to decide what someone wears to a mysterious meeting with a stranger who claims to know about your brother's murder. She settled on jeans, boots, a dark jacket. Practical, easy to move in if she needed to run. Shanice was working a double at the hospital, so the apartment was empty. Mariah left a note on the kitchen counter, out for a bit, back later, knowing it was inadequate but not knowing what else to say. She couldn't tell anyone. The note had been clear about that. State and Congress, heart of downtown Boston, public enough to feel safe, busy enough to blend in. Mariah arrived at 6:45, positioning herself near a coffee shop with a clear view of the intersection. The evening crowd was thick. Commuters heading home, tourists taking photos, students clustered outside bars. She watched every face looking for him. 7 o'clock came and went, 7:15, 7:30. Mariah's chest tightened. Had she gotten it wrong? Misread the time? Or had this been some kind of cruel joke? Mariah Collins? She spun around. A woman stood behind her, late 30s, blonde hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, wearing a tailored gray coat and carrying a leather briefcase. Professional, polished, not at all who Mariah had expected. Who are you?" The woman's expression was neutral, unreadable. "My name is Jennifer Hartwell, I'm an attorney, and I need you to come with me right now." Mariah took a step back, her mind screaming warnings. A stranger, a woman she'd never seen before, telling her to go somewhere. This wasn't right. "I don't know you," Mariah said, her voice tight. "I'm not going anywhere with you." Jennifer Hartwell didn't move closer, didn't reach for her. Instead, she opened her briefcase with deliberate calm and pulled out a photograph. She held it up so Mariah could see. It was the young man from the restaurant. Same expensive suit, same distant expression, but in this photo he was sitting in what looked like an office, papers spread across a conference table. "His name is Cameron Breslin," Jennifer said quietly, "and he's the reason you're here. But he couldn't come himself. It's not safe for him to be seen with you." Mariah stared at the photo, her heart hammering. "Why?" "Because the people who killed your brother are watching him. And if they knew he was trying to reach you, they'd know he's figured out what really happened that night in Dorchester." The words hit Mariah like a physical blow. She felt her knees weaken, had to lock them to keep standing. Jennifer's expression softened slightly. "I know this is overwhelming. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I'm asking you to take a chance. Cameron risked everything to find you. The least you can do is hear what he has to say." "Why me?" Mariah's voice cracked. "Why now, after 3 years? Because you're the only person who can help him prove it. And he's the only person who can give you the truth about Marcus." Jennifer glanced over her shoulder, scanning the crowd with the practiced efficiency of someone used to being watched. "We need to move. There's a car waiting 2 blocks from here. Black sedan, license plate GHT 4721. The driver's name is Paul. He'll take you to Cameron. And if I say no," Jennifer met her eyes, "then you walk away. Go back to your life. Keep wondering what really happened to your brother. Keep thinking it was just bad luck, wrong place, wrong time." She paused. "But we both know you're not going to do that. Because you turned over that receipt. Because you came here tonight. Because you need to know." Mariah's hands clenched into fists. She hated that this stranger was right. Hated that she'd already made her decision the moment she'd lied to Patrick. The moment she'd kept that note hidden. "How do I know this isn't a trap?" Jennifer pulled out her phone, tapped the screen a few times, then turned it toward Mariah. A video began playing. Cameron Breslin appeared on screen, sitting in a dimly lit room. He looked directly at the camera, his expression serious, almost haunted. "Mariah, if you're watching this, it means you found my message and you came. I'm sorry for the secrecy, I'm sorry for not being able to meet you in person. But I promise you, everything Jennifer tells you is true. Your brother Marcus didn't die in a random shooting. He was targeted. and I can prove it. Please, trust her. Trust me. I know I have no right to ask, but I'm asking anyway." The video ended. Mariah felt tears burning behind her eyes. That voice, that face. The same man who'd sat in her section last night, who'd ignored her completely, who'd left 0 tip, but who'd also left her a lifeline. 2 blocks, Jennifer said softly. Black sedan. Paul will be waiting. Mariah took a shaky breath, then nodded. The car was exactly where Jennifer said it would be, idling at the curb on a quiet side street. The windows were tinted dark enough that Mariah couldn't see inside until the back door opened. An older man with silver hair and kind eyes leaned out. "Miss Collins, I'm Paul. Please, get in." Mariah hesitated one final moment, then climbed into the back seat. Jennifer slid in beside her and Paul pulled smoothly into traffic. No one spoke for several minutes. Mariah watched the city slide past. Beacon Hill's narrow streets, the common lit up against the darkening sky, the golden dome of the State House gleaming. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. "Brookline," Jennifer said. "Cameron's staying at a private residence somewhere off the grid. Why all the secrecy? Who's watching him?" Jennifer exchanged a glance with Paul in the rearview mirror. "Have you ever heard of Meridian Capital Group?" Mariah shook her head. "It's a private equity firm, one of the largest in the country. Cameron's father, Richard Breslin, founded it 30 years ago, built it into a billion-dollar empire." Jennifer's voice was measured, careful. Cameron was being groomed to take over. Harvard business, internships at Goldman Sachs, the whole trajectory. But 6 months ago, he started noticing irregularities in some of Meridian's investments. Money moving in ways that didn't make sense. Shell companies, offshore accounts, patterns that looked like money laundering. Mariah listened, trying to connect this to Marcus. "What does that have to do with my brother?" Cameron started digging, quietly. He couldn't go to his father. Richard is either complicit or willfully ignorant. Cameron's not sure which. So he hired a private investigator, someone discreet, someone who could trace the money without raising alarms. Paul turned onto a tree-lined street, slowing as they approached a wrought iron gate. He entered a code, and the gate swung open. Jennifer continued. The investigator traced one of the shell companies to a real estate development project in Dorchester, low-income housing that was supposed to be renovated and turned into affordable apartments. Except the money never went to renovations. It went somewhere else. And when the investigator started asking questions about who owned the property, he found something interesting. The car stopped in front of a beautiful brownstone, lights glowing warm in the windows. Paul got out and opened Mariah's door. "What did he find?" Mariah asked, not moving. "He found your brother's name, Marcus Collins, listed as a maintenance worker for the property management company that supposedly ran the building. Except Marcus never worked there. Someone used his identity, used his social security number, his address, everything." Mariah felt the ground shift beneath her. "That's impossible. Marcus worked at a warehouse and a grocery store. He never—" "We know. That's the point. Someone set him up, made it look like he was part of the operation. And when he wasn't useful anymore, when he became a liability." Jennifer didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Mariah's vision blurred. She pressed her palms against her eyes, fighting for control. "You're saying someone killed him, deliberately, made it look random?" "Yes. Who? That's what Cameron's trying to find out. But he needs your help." Mariah lowered her hands, looked at Jennifer with raw desperation. "How? How can I possibly help? I'm a waitress. I don't know anything about finance or investigations or—" "You know Marcus. You know his life, his routines, the people he knew. Cameron's investigator disappeared 2 months ago. Just vanished. Cameron thinks whoever's behind this got to him. Now Cameron's trying to finish what the investigator started, but he's missing pieces. Details only someone close to Marcus would know." The front door of the brownstone opened. Cameron Breslin stood silhouetted in the doorway, hands in his pockets, looking somehow smaller and more vulnerable than he had in the restaurant. He wasn't the arrogant millionaire she'd assumed. He was scared. Jennifer touched Mariah's arm gently. "He's risking everything to do this. His family, his inheritance, possibly his life, because he believes in doing the right thing, and he believes you deserve the truth." Mariah climbed out of the car on shaking legs. Cameron walked down the steps toward her, stopping a respectful distance away. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the dark circles under his eyes. This wasn't a game to him. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. His voice was the same as in the video, serious, weighted with something that might have been guilt. "I know how this must look. I know you have no reason to trust me, But I swear to you, Mariah, I'm going to find out who killed your brother, and I'm going to make sure they pay for it." Mariah's throat tightened. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly. Why? The word came out broken. Why do you care? You didn't know Marcus. You don't know me. Why risk everything for someone you've never met? Cameron's jaw tightened. For a moment he looked like he might not answer. Then slowly, he said, "Because it's my father's company that got him killed. Because money that should have gone to helping people like Marcus went to lining the pockets of criminals instead. Because I sat in boardrooms and signed off on reports without asking the right questions and people died because of it." His voice cracked. "I can't bring your brother back, but I can make sure his death meant something. I can make sure it stops." The words hung in the cold October air. Mariah studied his face, searching for deception, for manipulation, for any sign that this was another trap in a life that had already taken so much from her. But all she saw was a young man carrying the weight of guilt he didn't entirely deserve, trying to do the one thing she'd been trying to do for 3 years. Get justice for Marcus. "Okay," she whispered. "Tell me what you need." Inside, the brownstone was warm and tastefully furnished. Leather couches, dark wood bookshelves, art that looked expensive but not ostentatious. Cameron led her to a study where a laptop sat open on a desk, surrounded by stacks of papers and printouts. Jennifer followed them in, closing the door behind her. Cameron gestured to the papers. "This is everything I've gathered so far. Financial records, property deeds, police reports from the night Marcus died. I've been trying to piece together a timeline, but there are gaps. Things that don't add up." He pulled up a document on the laptop screen. "This is the police report. It says Marcus was shot at 11:47 p.m. outside a convenience store on Dorchester Avenue. 2 witnesses reported hearing gunshots, but saw no one. No surveillance footage. No shell casings recovered. The official conclusion was gang-related crossfire." Mariah nodded numbly. She'd read that report 100 times, memorized every cold clinical word. Cameron opened another file. But here's what the report doesn't mention. 3 days before Marcus died, a woman named Teresa Gonzalez was found dead in her apartment 2 blocks from that convenience store. Overdose, according to the medical examiner. No investigation. "I don't understand," Mariah said. "Who's Teresa Gonzalez?" "She was the property manager for the Dorchester building I mentioned, the one where Marcus's name was used fraudulently. Teresa was the one who filed the paperwork listing Marcus as an employee. She's also the one who cashed checks made out to maintenance workers who didn't exist." Jennifer added, "We think Teresa figured out she was being used. Maybe she threatened to go to the police. Maybe she just asked too many questions. Either way, she became a problem. And 3 days after she died, Marcus died too." Mariah sank into a chair, her legs finally giving out. "You think whoever killed Teresa killed Marcus too?" "I think Marcus was loose end," Cameron said gently. "Even though he had nothing to do with any of this, his identity was tied to the fraud. If the police had investigated Teresa's death more closely, they might have found the connection to Marcus, might have brought him in for questioning, and he would have told them he had no idea what they were talking about, which would have led to a real investigation, which would have exposed everything. So they killed him first," Mariah finished, her voice hollow. "Made it look random, made sure no one would connect it to Teresa or the building or any of it." "Yes." Silence filled the room. Mariah stared at the papers spread across the desk, seeing her brother's name typed in black and white among spreadsheets and legal documents. Marcus, who'd never hurt anyone, who'd worked himself to exhaustion trying to build a better life, reduced to a liability, a loose end to be cut. Rage burned through her grief, hot and clarifying. "Who did this?" She looked up at Cameron, her voice steel. "You said you have financial records. You said you've been investigating. Who's behind it?" Cameron's expression darkened. "That's where I need your help. I can trace the money. I can prove the fraud. But I can't prove who ordered the killings. The investigator I hired, his name was David Chen. He told me he'd found a connection. Someone high up in Meridian who was orchestrating everything. He was going to give me a name. Then he disappeared. And you think I can find that name? I think you might know something you don't realize you know. Something Marcus told you or showed you. A name, a place, a detail that seemed meaningless at the time but could be the key." Mariah shook her head. "Marcus never talked about work. He kept things simple. Showed up, did his job, came home. Did he ever mention meeting anyone unusual? Getting phone calls from people he didn't know? Finding anything strange?" Mariah started to say no, but something stopped her. A memory surfaced, hazy, almost forgotten. 2 weeks before Marcus died, he'd called her, late at night, which was unusual. She'd been half asleep, barely remembered the conversation, but she remembered him saying something odd. "Sis, if anything ever happens to me, there's something in my locker at work. Storage unit B7. Don't let Mom throw it away, okay?" She'd laughed it off, told him he was being dramatic. He'd laughed too, said he was probably just tired. She never thought about it again. Until now. "Storage unit B7, Mariah whispered. Cameron's head snapped up. "What?" "Marcus told me, right before he died. He said there was something in his locker, storage unit B7, at the warehouse where he worked." She met Cameron's eyes. "I never checked. After the funeral, I couldn't face going through his things." Jennifer was already moving, pulling out her phone. "Which warehouse?" "Atlas Freight, in South Boston." Cameron and Jennifer exchanged a look. "That's owned by a subsidiary of Meridian," Jennifer said softly. The pieces clicked into place like a lock turning. Mariah stood up, her decision made. "We need to get into that locker, tonight, before someone else does." Cameron nodded. "I'll drive." The drive to South Boston took 25 minutes through streets slick with evening rain. Cameron drove a dark blue BMW, Jennifer in the passenger seat with her laptop open, typing rapidly. Mariah sat in the back, watching the city blur past, her mind racing faster than the car. Storage unit B7, such a small detail. Something Marcus had mentioned in passing, probably thinking it was nothing important. But he'd asked her specifically not to let their mother throw it away. That meant something. It had to. "The warehouse closes at midnight," Jennifer said without looking up from her screen. "Security makes rounds every 2 hours. Last sweep was at 9:30, which means we have until 11:30 to get in and out without being noticed." "How do you know their security schedule?" Mariah asked. "I looked it up. Public record. Atlas Freight filed their security protocols with the city when they applied for their business license." Jennifer glanced back at her. "Always do your research before breaking and entering." "We're not breaking in," Cameron said tightly. "Technically, Mariah has a right to access her brother's belongings. It's been 3 years, but there's no statute of limitations on personal property retrieval." "You sound like a lawyer," Mariah said. "I've been talking to lawyers a lot lately." The warehouse district appeared ahead. Massive concrete buildings hunched against the night sky, lit by harsh sodium lights that turned everything orange and surreal. Atlas Freight was at the end of a dead-end street, chain-link fence surrounding the property, a guard booth at the entrance. Cameron slowed the car, pulling into a parking lot across the street. He killed the engine. "There's a service entrance on the north side," Jennifer said, pointing to a narrow alley between buildings. "Employee access. Should be unlocked. Third shift workers come through there." "Should be?" Mariah's stomach nodded. 70% certainty. Maybe 80. That's not reassuring. Cameron turned in his seat to look at Mariah. "We don't have to do this tonight. We could wait, come back during business hours, try to go through proper channels." "No." Mariah's voice was firm. "If Marcus left something in that locker, and if it's important enough to get people killed, then someone else might already be looking for it. We can't wait." Cameron held her gaze for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, let's move." They crossed the street in silence, keeping to the shadows. The air smelled like diesel fuel and wet asphalt. Somewhere in the distance, a train rattled along elevated tracks, its rhythm matching Mariah's heartbeat. The service entrance was exactly where Jennifer said it would be. A metal door set into the side of the building. No external handle, just a card reader mounted on the wall. "Locked," Cameron muttered. Jennifer pulled a small device from her briefcase. Not for long. Mariah watched as the attorney attached something to the card reader, fingers flying over a miniature keyboard. "You carry lock-breaking equipment in your briefcase?" "I carry information retrieval tools, semantics." A light on the device blinked green. "Got it." The door clicked open. Inside the warehouse was a maze of metal shelving units reaching toward a ceiling lost in shadow. Forklifts sat dormant in neat rows. The smell of cardboard and machine oil was overwhelming. Emergency lighting cast everything in harsh white and deep black. No middle ground, no gray areas. "Employee lockers are in the back," Jennifer whispered, checking a floor plan on her phone. "Past the main storage area, near the loading docks." They moved quickly but carefully, footsteps echoing too loud on the concrete floor despite their best efforts. Every sound felt amplified. The hum of refrigeration units, the distant clang of metal, their own breathing. Mariah's nerves were stretched wire tight. This was insane. She was breaking into a warehouse with a millionaire and his attorney to search her dead brother's locker for evidence of, what? A conspiracy? Murder? Money laundering? All of it felt surreal, like she'd stumbled into someone else's life. But it was her life, her brother, her right to know the truth. They turned a corner and found themselves facing a row of gray metal lockers, each numbered and secured with a combination lock. Cameron pulled out a flashlight, sweeping the beam across the numbers. B1, B2, B3. Mariah's pulse quickened. B5, B6, B7. The locker was smaller than she'd expected, standard size, no different from any other, but her hands shook as she reached for the combination lock. "Do you know the code?" Cameron asked softly. Mariah closed her eyes, thinking. Marcus had always used the same numbers for everything. Their mother's birthday, July 15th, 0-7-1-5. The lock clicked open. She pulled the door wide. Inside, the locker was mostly empty. A spare work jacket hung on a hook, a pair of safety goggles, a water bottle covered in dust, and on the top shelf a manila envelope sealed with tape. Marcus's handwriting scrawled across the front. For Mariah, open only if something happens to me. Mariah's breath caught, her vision blurred with sudden tears. That was Marcus's handwriting, his voice reaching across 3 years of silence. With trembling fingers, she took the envelope. "We should go," Jennifer urged, glancing back the way they'd come. "We've been here too long." Mariah nodded, unable to speak. She clutched the envelope to her chest as they retraced their steps through the warehouse, moving faster now, caution giving way to urgency. They were almost to the service entrance when they heard it. Voices, coming from the main entrance. Multiple people walking with purpose. "Check the employee area first. If it's here, that's where it'll be." Cameron grabbed Mariah's arm, pulling her behind a stack of pallets. Jennifer ducked in beside them, killing the light on her phone. Through gaps in the wooden slats, Mariah could see them. 3 men in dark suits, too expensive for warehouse workers, too purposeful for security. One of them held a tablet, scrolling through what looked like employee records. "Marcus Collins, locker B7, the man with the tablet said. 3 years inactive, never cleaned out. If Chen was right, the evidence is still here. David Chen, Cameron's investigator, the one who'd disappeared. These were the people who'd made him disappear. Mariah's blood ran cold. If they'd arrived 5 minutes earlier, if Marcus's locker had still been full, the men moved past their hiding spot, heading toward the locker area. Mariah held her breath, pressing herself against the cold concrete wall. Cameron's hand found hers in the darkness, squeezed once. A silent message. "Stay calm. Stay quiet." They waited. Long seconds stretched into minutes. Mariah could hear the men's voices echoing from the locker area, frustrated, angry. They'd found the locker open, empty except for a jacket and goggles. "It's gone. Someone got here first. Check the security footage. Find out who accessed this area tonight." Footsteps, moving fast, coming back their way. Cameron's grip on Mariah's hand tightened. Jennifer was already moving, positioning herself at the edge of their hiding spot, ready to run. The men passed within 10 feet of them. The service entrance was 50 feet away. They'd never make it without being seen. Unless... Mariah looked up. Above them, a metal catwalk ran the length of the warehouse, connecting to emergency exits on the 2nd level. It was dark up there, shadowed, out of the main sightline. She pointed. Cameron followed her gaze and nodded. They climbed. The metal stairs were narrow, slippery with condensation. Each step felt like it might give them away, might ring out and alert the men below. But somehow, impossibly, they made it to the catwalk without being detected. From above, Mariah could see the entire warehouse floor. The 3 men were conferring near the entrance, one of them on a phone speaking in clipped, urgent tones. "Yes, the locker's been accessed. Recently. No sign of forced entry, which means someone had the combination. They were trapped." The service entrance was visible from where the men stood. The main entrance was crawling with security now. More men had arrived, spreading out, searching. "There's an emergency exit at the far end of the catwalk," Jennifer whispered, barely audible. "Leads to the roof." "And then what?" Mariah hissed back. "We jump. Fire escape on the east side. I saw it on the schematics." Cameron looked like he wanted to argue but didn't have a better option. They moved along the catwalk, single file, testing each step before putting weight on it. The metal creaked ominously. Below, one of the men looked up. "Did you hear that?" Mariah froze. Probably rats, places full of them. They kept moving, faster now. Caution abandoned in favor of speed. The emergency exit appeared ahead, a red door with a crash bar, warning sign promising an alarm would sound if opened. They didn't have a choice. Cameron hit the bar. The alarm shrieked to life, a piercing wail that echoed through the entire building. Go, go, go! They burst onto the roof, cold wind hitting them like a slap. The city sprawled below, lights stretching to the horizon. Behind them, shouts erupted from inside the warehouse. Jennifer led them to the fire escape, a rusted metal ladder bolted to the side of the building. She went first, descending with surprising agility for someone in a business suit. Mariah followed, the envelope still clutched in one hand, the other gripping the ladder so tight her knuckles went white. Cameron came last, pulling the roof access door shut behind them. Buying precious seconds, they hit the ground running. The BMW was still across the street. They piled in, Cameron already starting the engine before the doors closed. Tires squealed as they pulled away from the curb. In the rearview mirror, Mariah saw men emerging from the warehouse, looking around wildly, one of them raising a phone to his ear. But they were already gone, disappearing into Boston's maze of streets. No one spoke for several blocks. The only sound was their ragged breathing and the hum of the engine. Finally, Jennifer broke the silence. That was closer than I'd like. They knew, Cameron said, his voice shaking slightly. They knew about the locker, about Chen's investigation. They were looking for the same thing we were. But we got there first, Mariah said quietly. She looked down at the envelope in her lap, Marcus's handwriting staring back at her. For Mariah, open only if something happens to me. Her hands were still shaking. She wasn't sure they'd ever stop. We need to get somewhere safe, Jennifer said. Somewhere off the grid. They'll have facial recognition running on the warehouse security footage within the hour. They'll know who we are. Cameron nodded, already turning toward the highway. I know a place. A friend's cabin in New Hampshire. No digital footprint, no paper trail. We can regroup there. Mariah barely heard them. Her entire focus was on the envelope, on her brother's last message, on the truth that had cost him his life. Do you want to wait to open it? Cameron asked gently, catching her eye in the rearview mirror. Mariah shook her head. She'd waited 3 years. She couldn't wait another second. Her fingers tore through the tape, pulling open the flap. Inside was a USB drive and a letter, written in Marcus's familiar handwriting, dated 2 days before he died. Mariah, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. I need you to know I'm sorry. Sorry for getting involved in something I didn't understand. Sorry for being stupid enough to think I could fix it alone. About 3 weeks ago, a man approached me at work, said his name was David Chen, said he was investigating fraud at Atlas Freight. He showed me documents, payroll records listing me as an employee at a property management company I'd never heard of. Someone was using my identity, my social security number, everything. He said people had been killed over it, said I was in danger. I didn't believe him at first, thought it was some kind of scam, but he kept showing up, kept bringing more evidence. Finally, I agreed to help him. I started copying files from the warehouse system, shipping manifests, employee records, financial transfers, everything I could access. The USB drive has it all. Proof of money laundering, fraud, connections between Atlas Freight and a company called Meridian Capital. Names, dates, everything. Chen told me to hide it somewhere safe. Said if anything happened to him, I should take it to the FBI. But I'm scared, sis. These people, they're dangerous. Chen's been getting threats. I've seen cars following me. Last week, a woman who worked at the property management company was found dead. Overdose, the news said, but I don't believe it. I'm going to meet Chen tomorrow night. He says he has enough evidence to go to the authorities that will be protected. I want to believe him, but just in case, if something happens, you need to take this to someone you trust, someone who can't be bought. And you need to be careful, Mariah. Promise me you'll be careful. I love you. Tell Mom I love her too. Mariah's tears fell freely now, dropping onto the paper, blurring the ink. She read it again, and again. Her baby brother trying to do the right thing, trying to help expose criminals, trying to be brave, and they'd killed him for it. Jennifer reached back and gently took the letter, reading it quickly. Her expression hardened. This changes everything, she said. If that USB drive has what Marcus said it has, we can prove it, Cameron finished. We can prove all of it. The fraud, the money laundering, the murders, everything. Mariah looked up, meeting his eyes in the mirror. Her grief was transforming, crystallizing into something sharper, harder. Purpose. Then we need to make sure it counts. she said, her voice steady despite the tears. "We need to make sure everyone involved pays for what they did. Every single one of them." Cameron's jaw set. "We will. I promise you, Mariah. We will." The car sped into the night, carrying 3 people who'd just declared war on forces far more powerful than themselves. And in Mariah's hands, a dead man's evidence that might finally bring justice, or get them all killed trying. The cabin was 2 hours north of Boston, buried deep in the White Mountains where cell service died, and the nearest neighbor was 3 miles away. They arrived just after midnight, exhausted, running on adrenaline and fear. Cameron parked behind the structure, hiding the BMW from the main road. The cabin itself was modest, wood frame construction, probably built in the 70s, surrounded by pine trees that whispered in the wind. No lights visible for miles. Perfect isolation. Inside, Jennifer immediately swept the space for listening devices while Cameron got a fire started. Mariah stood in the center of the small living room, still clutching the envelope, still trying to process everything that had happened in the last 4 hours. She'd gone from serving tables to being hunted by corporate assassins. The disconnect was so jarring it felt like a hallucination. "Clear," Jennifer announced, returning from the bedroom. "No bugs, no cameras. We're safe, for now." Cameron's fire caught, flames licking at dry wood, casting dancing shadows across the walls. The warmth was immediate, cutting through the October cold that had seeped into Mariah's bones during the drive. "We need to look at what's on that USB," Jennifer said, setting up her laptop on a scarred wooden table. "If Marcus was right, if it really contains evidence of Meridian's involvement, it will," Mariah said quietly. She pulled the small drive from the envelope, held it up to the firelight. Such a tiny thing. Her brother had died protecting this. David Chen had disappeared because of it. Marcus wouldn't have hidden it unless it mattered. She handed the drive to Jennifer, who inserted it into her laptop with careful precision. The screen filled with folders, dozens of them. Spreadsheets, scanned documents, photographs, audio files. Cameron moved closer, reading over Jennifer's shoulder. His face went pale. "Jesus Christ," he breathed. This is everything." Jennifer clicked through files rapidly, her expression growing darker with each one. Shipping manifests showing inventory that doesn't exist. Payroll records for employees who aren't real. Financial transfers to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, Luxembourg, Singapore. She pulled up a spreadsheet. "Look at this. Meridian Capital created at least 20 shell companies, all funneling money through Atlas Freight. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. Money laundering," Cameron said, "on a massive scale." "But laundering what money?" Mariah asked. "Where did it come from?" Jennifer opened another folder. Audio files, each labeled with dates and names. She selected one at random, pressed play. A man's voice filled the cabin, tinny through the laptop speakers but clear enough to understand. "Shipment arrives Thursday, same as always. You unload it after hours. No questions asked. The paperwork will say machine parts. You don't look in the containers. You don't talk about what you see. You get paid $5,000 cash. Are we clear?" Another voice, younger, uncertain. "And if someone asks questions? If customs comes sniffing around, they won't. We own enough people in the right places, but if they do, you don't know anything. You were just following orders from management. The trail ends with you, understand? That's why you're getting paid." The file ended. Mariah felt sick. What was in those shipments? Jennifer opened a document. Photographs, grainy and dark, clearly taken without permission. Shipping containers being unloaded in the dead of night. Men in Atlas Freight uniforms working alongside people who definitely weren't warehouse employees. And visible in one photo, stacked in the background, packages wrapped in plastic. The kind of packaging Mariah had seen in enough crime documentaries to recognize. Drugs. "Oh my God," she whispered. Cameron's hands were shaking. "My father's company. This whole time they weren't just laundering money, they were facilitating drug trafficking, using legitimate businesses as cover." "And Teresa Gonzalez found out," Jennifer said, pulling up another file. "Look, email correspondence between Teresa and someone named R.M., dated 3 weeks before her death. She's asking questions about discrepancies in the building maintenance budget. Why there are payments going to workers who never show up on site. Why the property account keeps getting drained for repairs that never happen." She scrolled down. The final email was chilling in its brevity. "Teresa, you need to stop asking questions. This is above your pay grade. Forget what you've seen. RM. RM. Cameron said slowly. Richard Meridian. Mariah looked at him sharply. Who? Richard Meridian, my father's business partner, the co-founder of Meridian Capital. Cameron's voice was hollow. I've known him my entire life. He was at my birthday parties, my graduation, family dinners. And he's a murderer, Jennifer said flatly. She pulled up more files, financial records linking Richard Meridian directly to the shell companies, to the offshore accounts, to payments made to individuals with criminal records. He's not just involved. He's running it, the whole operation. The room fell silent except for the crackling fire. Mariah tried to process this. A man Cameron had trusted, had grown up with, was responsible for her brother's death, for Teresa Gonzalez's death, for David Chen's disappearance, for God knows how many other crimes hidden in those folders. Does your father know? She asked Cameron. He looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw genuine uncertainty in his eyes. I don't know. I've been trying to figure that out for months. Richard handles most of the operational side of Meridian. My father focuses on client relations, big picture strategy. It's possible Richard kept him in the dark. It's also possible he didn't finish. Didn't need to. Jennifer stood up, pacing. Okay, we have evidence. Substantial evidence. Enough to bring federal charges against Richard Meridian and probably a dozen other people involved in this operation. The question is, who do we trust with it? The FBI, Mariah said immediately. Not that simple. If this operation has been running for years without detection, that means people in law enforcement are compromised. The audio files Marcus collected, we own enough people in the right places. That's not an empty threat. They have cops, maybe feds, definitely people in city government on their payroll. Cameron ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Then what? We can't just sit on this. Every day we wait, they're getting closer to finding us. We need someone outside the system, Jennifer said. A journalist. Someone with a national platform who can't be silenced or bought off. I know someone, Cameron said slowly. Elena Vargas, investigative reporter for the Boston Globe. She's done exposés on corporate corruption before. Won a Pulitzer for uncovering a price-fixing scheme in the pharmaceutical industry. She's legit. Can you trust her? I think so. We went to Harvard together. She's reached out to me before asking questions about Meridian's business practices. I always deflected, but if I came to her now with proof, she'd run the story, Jennifer finished. And once it's public, they can't bury it. Even if they kill us, the information is out there. The casual way she said kill us made Mariah's blood run cold. This was real. These people had murdered her brother in cold blood. They wouldn't hesitate to do the same to anyone else who threatened their operation. We need insurance, Mariah said, her mind working through the logistics. Multiple copies of the drive. One goes to Elena Vargas, one goes to a lawyer, someone outside Jennifer's firm, someone they can't touch. One goes to the FBI, even if there's a risk of corruption. We flood the zone, make it impossible to contain. Cameron nodded slowly. Smart. And we need to move fast. They know we were at the warehouse. They'll be looking for us. As if on cue, Jennifer's phone buzzed. She turned it back on to contact Elena Vargas, and now notifications flooded in. Her face went white as she read them. What? Cameron asked. They've issued a statement. Meridian Capital just released a press announcement. She turned the phone so they could see. The headline made Mariah's stomach drop. Meridian Capital offers $100,000 reward for information leading to Cameron Breslin. Below it, a photo of Cameron. Professional, corporate, nothing like the frightened young man standing in this cabin. The statement claimed Cameron had embezzled money from the company, was suffering from mental health issues, was considered dangerous and potentially armed. Anyone with information about his whereabouts should contact authorities immediately. They're framing you, Mariah breathed. Worse, Jennifer said, scrolling down. Look at the rest. There was a second photo. Mariah's heart stopped. It was her. A grainy image pulled from the warehouse security footage, her face partially visible as she climbed into Cameron's car. Person of interest. Mariah Collins, 28. Believed to be traveling with Cameron Breslin. Approach with caution. They've made us fugitives, Cameron said quietly. Every cop in New England is going to be looking for us now. Mariah's hands clenched into fists. This was how they operated. Couldn't silence the evidence, discredit the witnesses, make them look like criminals, crazy, dangerous, make sure no one would believe them even if they came forward. But they'd underestimated one thing. Mariah Collins had spent 3 years being invisible, being ignored, being dismissed as just another poor black woman trying to survive in a city that didn't care about people like her. She'd gotten very good at being underestimated. "Good," she said, surprising both Cameron and Jennifer. "Let them think we're on the run. Let them think we're scared. It'll make them overconfident. Sloppy." "What are you suggesting?" Jennifer asked. "I'm suggesting we don't hide. We go on offense." Mariah's voice was steady, cold with determination. "Elena Vargas. She's in Boston, right?" Cameron nodded. "Her office is downtown near the Common. Then we go to her. Tomorrow. We give her everything. The drive, the letter, our testimony. We tell her about Marcus, about Teresa, about David Chen. We make her understand that this story is bigger than just corporate fraud. It's about murder, corruption, an entire criminal enterprise hiding behind a billion-dollar company. They'll be watching for us," Jennifer warned. "The second we're spotted in Boston, then we make sure we're not spotted until we want to be. We go early before dawn. We use back streets. We get in, deliver the evidence, and get out before they can react." Cameron was staring at her with something like admiration. "You've thought this through. This? I've had 3 years to think about how I'd get justice for Marcus if I ever got the chance." Mariah met his eyes. "I'm not wasting it." Jennifer closed her laptop, her expression shifting from concern to resolve. "All right. We do this smart. I'll make copies of the drive tonight, 5 copies, all hidden in different locations. I'll send encrypted files to colleagues I trust with instructions to release them if anything happens to us. We stack the deck. And I'll contact Elena," Cameron added. "Set up a meeting. Somewhere public enough that they can't grab us without witnesses, but private enough that we can talk." "The public library," Mariah suggested. "Main branch near Copley Square. Opens at 9. Lots of people, lots of cameras, multiple exits." "Perfect." They worked through the night. Jennifer created backup drives, encrypted files, drafted messages to be sent to law firms and media outlets across the country. Cameron reached out to Elena Vargas through a secure channel setting up the meeting. Mariah went through every file on Marcus's drive, memorizing names, faces, connections, building the case in her mind. By 4 a.m., they were ready. By 5, they were back in the car, heading toward Boston. The city was still dark when they arrived, streetlights reflecting off wet pavement. Rain had started again, steady and cold. They parked 3 blocks from the library, in a garage where the attendant barely looked at them. Jennifer handed Mariah a small envelope. "One of the backup drives. Keep it on you at all times. If something goes wrong, if we get separated, you get that to someone who can use it." Mariah tucked it into her jacket pocket next to her brother's letter. 2 pieces of paper and a USB drive. Such small things to bring down an empire. But sometimes the smallest things carried the most weight. They walked through the rain toward Copley Square. 3 figures hunched against the weather, looking like any other commuters trying to get an early start. The library loomed ahead, its classical architecture illuminated by spotlights. Beautiful, solid, a temple to truth and knowledge. Fitting, Mariah thought, for what they were about to do. Elena Vargas was waiting inside, exactly where Cameron said she'd be. 3rd floor reading room, corner table with a view of the street. She was younger than Mariah expected, maybe 35, with dark hair pulled into a professional bun and sharp eyes that assessed them the moment they approached. "Cameron," she said quietly, "I have to admit when you reached out I thought it was a joke. Then I saw the news. It's all lies, Elena. Everything they're saying about me. I figured. You never struck me as the embezzling type." She glanced at Mariah and Jennifer. "Are you going to introduce me?" "Elena Vargas, this is Jennifer Hartwell and Mariah Collins." Cameron sat down, keeping his voice low. "What we're about to tell you is going to sound insane, but I need you to listen, and I need you to believe us." Elena pulled out a notebook, clicked her pen. "I'm listening." For the next hour, they laid it all out. The fraud, the money laundering, the drug trafficking, Marcus's investigation, Teresa Gonzalez's murder, David Chen's disappearance, Richard Meridian's involvement. Everything. Jennifer presented documents. Cameron provided insider knowledge of Meridian's operations. Mariah showed Elena her brother's letter, her voice breaking only once as she read it aloud. When they finished, Elena sat back in her chair, her expression unreadable. "This is substantial," she finally said. "If even half of what you're telling me is true, this is the biggest corporate crime story in a decade, maybe longer." "It's all true," Mariah said, and every word. Elena studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. I believe you and I'll run the story. Front page above the fold. But I need to verify some of these claims independently. Talk to sources. Build corroboration. That takes time. How much time? Cameron asked urgently. 48 hours. Maybe less if I can reach my contacts quickly. We might not have 48 hours. Then you need to stay out of sight. Let me do my job. Once the story runs, you'll have protection. Public attention is the best shield against people like Richard Meridian. It made sense, but something about it nagged at Mariah. They were exposing themselves, trusting a journalist they barely knew, hoping that publicity would keep them safe. But in her experience, hope was a luxury people like her couldn't afford. We need guarantees, she said. Something that ensures this story runs, even if something happens to us. Elena hesitated. What kind of guarantees? A dead man's switch. If we don't check in with you every 12 hours, you publish immediately. Doesn't matter if you've finished verifying. Doesn't matter if the Globe's lawyers are nervous, you run it. That's not how journalism works. That's how staying alive works. Mariah's voice was steel. These people killed my brother for knowing too much. They'll kill us without blinking. We need insurance that our deaths won't be for nothing. Elena looked at Cameron, then Jennifer, then back at Mariah. Finally, she nodded. Okay, every 12 hours. If I don't hear from you, I publish what I have. They exchanged secure contact information. Elena took possession of one of the USB drives, promising to keep it in a safe location. They agreed on a signal, a specific phrase Cameron would use when checking in, so Elena would know it was really him, and not someone forcing him to make contact. As they stood to leave, Elena grabbed Mariah's arm. I'm sorry, she said quietly. About your brother, about everything you've been through. I promise you I'll make sure his story is told. Mariah nodded, not trusting herself to speak. They left the library separately. Jennifer first, then Cameron, then Mariah. The rain had picked up, turning the morning gray and miserable. Perfect weather for disappearing. Mariah was halfway to the parking garage when she felt it, the prickle on the back of her neck, the sense of being watched. She glanced over her shoulder. A black sedan was idling at the curb across the street. Tinted windows, no plates visible, just like the cars Marcus had mentioned in his letter. Her pulse spiked. She walked faster, not running. Running would draw attention, but moving with purpose toward the garage. Behind her, she heard a car door open. Footsteps on wet pavement, getting closer. Mariah's hand went to her pocket, feeling for the backup drive. Still there. She had to protect it, had to get it somewhere safe. She rounded the corner into the garage entrance. Strong hands grabbed her from behind, yanking her into the shadows. She opened her mouth to scream. Mariah, don't! It's me! Cameron's voice. Cameron's face, inches from hers, his hand over her mouth. He'd been waiting for her, but his expression wasn't relief, it was terror. They found us, he whispered. Jennifer's been taken. Mariah's mind raced as Cameron pulled her deeper into the garage's shadows. His face was pale, his breathing ragged. What do you mean they took her? Mariah demanded, keeping her voice low. After we left the library, I circled back to make sure no one was following. I saw them grab her. 2 men, professional, fast. She didn't even have time to scream. They pulled her into a van and drove off. Did they see you? I don't think so. I stayed hidden. His hands were shaking. Mariah, they have her, and they'll use her to get to us, to get the evidence. Mariah's tactical mind kicked into gear, the same survival instinct that had kept her alive through years of barely making rent, of working 2 jobs, of navigating a world that wanted her to stay invisible. They'll contact us, she said. Offer a trade, Jennifer for the drives. We can't give them the evidence. That's the only thing keeping us alive. I know. Mariah pulled out her phone, checking the time. 7:43 a.m. But we also can't let Jennifer die, so we're going to do both. Cameron stared at her. How? Elena has a copy of the drive. She's already started verification. Even if we gave them every other copy, she'd still run the story in 48 hours. We just need to survive that long. They won't wait 48 hours. No, they'll want to make the exchange now, this morning, before Elena can publish. Mariah's mind worked through the angles. We give them what they want or what they think they want. Understanding dawned in Cameron's eyes. A fake drive. Jennifer made 5 copies, they don't know that. We give them 1 real drive, but we tell Elena to move up her timeline. Publish tonight, not in 2 days. Once the story breaks, killing us becomes pointless. We're more valuable as witnesses than as corpses. Cameron pulled out his phone, already dialing. I'll call Elena, tell her to accelerate. While he spoke in urgent whispers to the journalist, Mariah assessed their situation. They were trapped in a parking garage, hunted by people with unlimited resources and no moral boundaries. Jennifer was being held somewhere, probably being interrogated, possibly hurt. But they had one advantage. Richard Meridian and his people still thought they were in control. Cameron ended the call. Elena's in. She's calling in her entire team, fact-checking around the clock. She says she can have the story ready by 6 p.m. Front page of tomorrow's paper, online tonight. 10 hours, Mariah said. We need to stay alive for 10 hours. Cameron's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. Mr. Breslin. The voice was smooth, cultured, familiar to Cameron. I think we need to talk. Richard. Cameron's voice was ice. I have your attorney, Ms. Hartwell is comfortable for now, but that could change quickly depending on how cooperative you're willing to be. Let her go. Of course, as soon as you return what you stole from the warehouse, the USB drive, all copies, and any documentation related to it. And if I refuse, then Jennifer Hartwell will be found in the Charles River, followed shortly by Mariah Collins, followed shortly by you. Is that really how you want this to end, Cameron? Your father and I raised you better than this. Mariah watched Cameron's jaw clench. The mention of his father was deliberate, designed to wound. My father has nothing to do with this, Cameron said. A pause. Then, almost sadly, your father has everything to do with this. Who do you think started this operation 20 years ago? Who do you think I was protecting? The words hit like a sledgehammer. Cameron's face went white. You're lying. Am I? Ask yourself why Meridian Capital is named what it is. Meridian for me. Capital for your father. Richard Capital Breslin. His middle name. Our partnership wasn't just business, Cameron. It was brotherhood. Everything we built together, including the operations you're so desperate to expose. Mariah saw something break in Cameron's expression, the last shred of hope that his father was innocent. I don't believe you, Cameron whispered. Then ask him yourself. I'm texting you an address. Come alone. Bring the evidence. We'll make this trade. Jennifer's life for your cooperation. You walk away from this, Cameron. Go back to your life. No one has to know about your little investigation. No one has to get hurt, except the people you've already killed. Casualties of a business neither you nor I can control. The money flows where it flows. We're just facilitating commerce. You're a murderer. I'm a pragmatist. You have 1 hour. Come alone or Jennifer dies. And Mariah, I know you're listening. Your brother made the wrong choice. Don't make the same mistake. The line went dead. Mariah's hands clenched into fists. Hearing this monster speak Marcus's name made her want to scream. Cameron's phone buzzed with the address. An abandoned factory in Charlestown. Isolated. Easily controlled. A trap. We're not going, Mariah said. We have to. They have Jennifer, and they'll kill all of us the second they have the evidence. You know that. Cameron ran his hands through his hair, desperate. Then what do we do? Mariah thought fast. They needed help. Real help. People with authority, with firepower, with the ability to take on Richard Meridian's operation. But everyone was compromised. Police, FBI, city officials. We own enough people in the right places. Unless. The DEA, Mariah said suddenly. What? Marcus's files. The drug trafficking. That's federal jurisdiction. The DEA has been trying to crack East Coast distribution networks for years. If we give them evidence of a major operation, evidence they can verify independently, they'll move immediately, Cameron finished. Set up a raid, and we lead them right to Richard Meridian, to the exchange. They get their bust, we get Jennifer back, and everyone involved goes down. It was risky, it required perfect timing, but it was the only play they had. Cameron made the call using a burner phone they'd bought at a gas station. He reached a DEA field office in Boston, asked for the duty agent, and delivered a message that got immediate attention. I have evidence of a major drug trafficking operation running through Atlas Freight in South Boston. Multiple shipping manifests, financial records, audio recordings, and I can deliver the people running it today. But I need federal protection and a tactical team ready to move in 1 hour. 20 minutes later, they were sitting in a windowless room at the DEA field office across from Special Agent Marcus Reeves, a grim-faced man in his 50s who'd spent 30 years fighting the war on drugs and had the scars to prove it. Mariah showed him the drive, walked him through the evidence, explained the connection to Meridian Capital, to Richard Meridian, to her brother's murder. Reeves listened without interruption. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair. This is substantial, but you're asking me to authorize a tactical operation based on evidence I can't fully verify and… He checked his watch. 42 minutes. You can verify it after, Mariah said. Right now, a woman's life is at stake, and if you don't move fast, Richard Meridian will disappear. He's already spooked. If we don't show up to this exchange, he'll know something's wrong. He'll run, or kill Jennifer out of spite, Cameron added quietly. Reeves studied them both. If you're wrong, if this is some kind of corporate vendetta or personal grudge dressed up as a federal case, then we'll go to prison, Mariah said. But we're not wrong, and you know it. You can see it in those files. This is real. A long pause. Then Reeves stood up. All right, but we do this my way. You two wear wires. My team sets up a perimeter. The second we confirm Jennifer Hartwell is there and alive, we move in. You do not play hero. You do not engage. You hand over a fake drive, stall for time, and let us handle the rest. Clear? Clear, Mariah and Cameron said in unison. The abandoned factory loomed against the gray October sky, all broken windows and rusted metal. Cameron's BMW pulled through the gates at exactly 9 a.m., following the instructions Richard Meridian had provided. Inside the car, Mariah adjusted the wire taped to her chest. Somewhere out there, hidden in the industrial wasteland surrounding the factory, a DEA tactical team was moving into position. You ready? Cameron asked. No, Mariah admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. They parked and got out. The factory floor was vast, empty except for debris and pigeons. At the far end, backlit by broken skylights, stood Richard Meridian. He looked exactly like his photographs. Mid-60s, silver hair, expensive suit somehow impervious to the grime around him. Behind him, two men in tactical gear held Jennifer between them. She was alive, conscious, but her face was bruised. Mariah's anger spiked. Cameron, Richard called out, his voice echoing. I'm glad you came to your senses. They walked forward slowly. Mariah could feel the wire against her skin, could imagine Agent Reeves and his team listening to every word. Let her go, Cameron said. We brought what you wanted. Show me first. Cameron held up the USB drive, one of the fakes Jennifer had created, loaded with corrupted files that would take hours to realize were useless. Richard gestured. One of his men walked forward, took the drive, and plugged it into a laptop. He scrolled through files, nodded to Richard. Satisfied? Cameron asked. Almost. Richard's smile was cold. I need to know you didn't make copies, that this is the only evidence. It is. I don't believe you. Richard pulled out a gun, not pointing it yet, just holding it. A casual threat. See, Cameron, the problem is trust. You've already shown you're willing to betray your family, your legacy, everything we built. So forgive me if I need additional assurance. He turned the gun toward Jennifer. Tell me where the other copies are, or she dies. And I know there are other copies. David Chen made that mistake too, thinking one drive was enough insurance. He was wrong. Mariah's blood ran cold. Chen was dead. They'd killed him. Cameron's voice shook. There are no other copies. Last chance. Richard cocked the gun. Wait. Mariah stepped forward. I gave one to a journalist, Elena Vargas, Boston Globe. She's running a story tonight. It's already in production. You can't stop it. Richard's expression shifted. Calculation replacing confidence. You're bluffing. Call her. Check the Globe's website tonight. Read tomorrow's paper. Mariah's voice was steady. You can kill us, but you can't kill the truth. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across Richard's face. That's when the DEA moved in. Flashbangs exploded. Smoke filled the factory. Tactical teams poured through every entrance, weapons raised, voices shouting commands. Federal agents, drop your weapons, hands up, now. Chaos erupted. Richard's men scrambled, reaching for guns. Jennifer broke free, running toward Cameron and Mariah. Richard Meridian stood frozen, gun still in hand, staring at Cameron with something that might have been betrayal. You called the feds? I called everyone, Cameron said quietly. It's over, Richard. Agent Reeves appeared, weapon trained on Richard. Richard Meridian. You're under arrest for drug trafficking, money laundering, murder, and conspiracy. Drop the weapon. Now. For a second, Mariah thought Richard might fight, might go down shooting. Instead, he lowered the gun, let it clatter to the concrete floor. As DEA agents swarmed him, cuffing him, reading his rights, he looked at Cameron one last time. Your father will never forgive you for this. I don't care, Cameron said, and meant it. 6 months later, The courtroom was packed. Media filled every available seat. Cameras lined up outside, the biggest criminal trial Boston had seen in decades. Mariah sat in the witness gallery, watching as the prosecutor laid out the evidence. The USB drive Marcus had died protecting, the testimony of DEA agents, financial records tracing hundreds of millions in laundered money, audio recordings of Richard Meridian ordering hits, Cameron testified. So did Jennifer. So did Elena Vargas, explaining how her investigation had uncovered a conspiracy that reached into city government, state police, even federal agencies. And Mariah testified too, about Marcus, about a young man who'd worked 2 jobs, who'd dreamed of college, who'd tried to do the right thing and paid for it with his life. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. Richard Meridian would spend the rest of his life in federal prison. So would 12 others involved in the operation, including 2 Boston police officers and a customs official. Cameron's father, Richard Capital Breslin, was indicted separately. His trial was scheduled for next year, but the evidence was overwhelming. His own son would testify against him. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Mariah. She'd become a reluctant symbol, the invisible woman who'd brought down an empire. "How does it feel?" they asked. "How does it feel to get justice?" Mariah thought about Marcus, about his smile, about the last birthday card he'd sent her. "It doesn't bring him back," she said quietly. "Justice doesn't undo the pain, but it means his death mattered. It means he's not just another statistic. He's a hero, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure people remember that." 1 year later, the Marcus Collins Foundation opened its doors in Dorchester, in a renovated building that had once been a front for money laundering. Now it was a community center, offering job training, legal aid, and support for families affected by violence. Mariah stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, her mother beside her, tears streaming down both their faces. Cameron was there too, no longer a millionaire. He'd turned over his inheritance to victims of his father's crimes, but working as a financial analyst for nonprofits, using his skills to help rather than harm. Jennifer had started a legal clinic offering free representation to people like Marcus, people who fell through the cracks of a system designed to ignore them. And Elena Vargas had won her 2nd Pulitzer for the story that changed everything. As Mariah cut the ribbon, she thought about that night in the restaurant, about turning over a receipt, about making a choice that could have gotten her killed. She thought about invisibility, and how sometimes the people no one notices are the ones who change the world. "Thank you, Marcus," she whispered to the October wind. "Your story is told." And somewhere she liked to think her brother was smiling. 3 years after the trial, Mariah stood behind the podium at Boston University's graduation ceremony. She'd been invited as a guest speaker, a woman whose name had become synonymous with courage and justice. The auditorium was filled with students in caps and gowns, their faces bright with hope and possibility. Mariah remembered being that young once, before life had taught her harder lessons. "When I was working as a waitress," she began, her voice steady and clear, "I was invisible. People looked right through me, didn't see me as a person with dreams, with family, with a story worth knowing. They saw a uniform, a function, someone to bring their food and disappear." She paused, letting the words settle. "My brother Marcus was invisible too. A warehouse worker, a grocery store clerk, just another young black man trying to survive in a city that didn't value his life. When he died, the police report called it wrong place, wrong time. Like he was just collateral damage, like his life didn't matter enough to investigate." Mariah's hands gripped the podium. "But Marcus did matter, and the only reason the people who killed him are in prison today is because one person, just one, decided to turn over a piece of paper, to look where no one else was looking, to believe that even the smallest detail could matter." She smiled, remembering that rainy October night, the receipt in her hands, the moment everything changed. "You're graduating into a world that will try to make you choose between success and integrity, between profit and principles, between staying silent and speaking truth. And I'm here to tell you, choose the harder path, choose the truth, choose to see the invisible people, choose to believe that one person, armed with evidence and courage, can bring down an empire built on lies." The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, a young woman approached Mariah, shy, hesitant, eyes bright with tears. "My brother was killed 2 years ago," she said quietly. "The police said it was gang violence. Closed the case in 3 weeks. But I know he wasn't in a gang. I know something else happened." Mariah took the woman's hand. "What's your name?" Sophia, Sophia, come to the foundation on Monday. Bring everything you have, police reports, witness statements, anything. We'll look into it. Together. Sophia's tears spilled over. Thank you. Thank you for showing me it's possible. As Mariah watched her walk away, she felt Cameron's presence beside her. He'd been at the ceremony too, watching from the back row. Still changing lives, he said with a small smile. Trying to, one person at a time. They walked together across the campus. Two people who'd been strangers once, bound now by shared trauma and shared purpose. I heard from my father's lawyer yesterday, Cameron said quietly. He wants to see me, before sentencing next month. Will you go? Cameron was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Part of me wants to. Part of me needs to hear him admit what he did. But another part knows it won't change anything. He made his choices. I made mine. Whatever you decide, Mariah said. I'll be there if you need me. He nodded gratefully. That evening, Mariah returned to Dorchester, to the small apartment she still shared with Shanice. Despite the book deals, the speaking fees, the foundation salary that finally let her live comfortably, some things she didn't want to change. On her dresser sat a framed photograph, Marcus at 22, grinning at the camera, full of life and hope. Mariah touched the glass gently. We did it, baby brother, she whispered. Your name means something now. Your story saved lives, changed laws, made people pay attention. She pulled out the original receipt from that night, carefully preserved in a plastic sleeve, kept safe all these years. If you're reading this, you're the one I've been looking for. Such simple words, such extraordinary consequences. Mariah smiled, tucked the receipt back in its special place, and turned off the light. Tomorrow there would be more work, more families seeking justice, more invisible people needing someone to see them. But tonight she rested. Tonight she remembered a young man who'd tried to do the right thing, and she honored him the only way that mattered, by continuing the fight he'd started, by refusing to let anyone else become invisible, by turning over every receipt, every stone, every lie, until the truth was all that remained.